The garage door creaked open, and my heart stopped. I was alone, or so I thought, surrounded by the smell of motor oil and the faint hum of a flickering fluorescent light. Then his voice, gruff, low, and unmistakable, cut through the silence like a blade. "Elliot, what the hell are you doing out here?" I froze, my fingers tightening around the worn leather journal in my hands. It wasn't just any journal. It was my sanctuary. The one place I could pour out the truth I'd been hiding for years. I was in love with Ryan, my best friend, and the weight of that secret was crushing me. Growing up in a small town outside Denver, where pickup trucks and church potlucks defined life, being gay wasn't just a scandal, it was a sin. And my stepdad, Mike, was the kind of man who'd rather break a table than break bread with someone like me. I shoved the journal behind a toolbox, my pulse racing. "Just fixing my bike," I stammered, gesturing to the rusted Schwinn I hadn't touched in months. Mike stepped closer, his work boots thudding against the concrete floor. At 6 feet 4 inches, with a beard that made him look like he wrestled bears for fun, he was intimidating even when he wasn't trying to be. His eyes narrowed, scanning the garage like he could smell the lie. "You've been out here a lot lately," he said, his voice heavy with suspicion. "Sneaking around, hiding something." My stomach twisted. Did he know? Had he seen me and Ryan last week, when we'd lingered too long in the driveway, our hands brushing as we said goodbye? I forced a laugh, but it came out more like a choke. "Nah, just needed some space," I said, wiping my sweaty palms on my jeans. Mike didn't move. He just stood there, his shadow swallowing the light. I could feel the weight of his gaze, like he was peeling back every layer I'd built to protect myself. I was 19, stuck in this house with a stepdad who'd never really liked me, and a mom who loved me but didn't seem in it really. The garage was my escape, the only place I could be honest, even if it was just with a pen and paper. "Space," Mike repeated, his tone flat. He crossed his arms, his flannel shirt straining against his broad shoulders. "You and that Ryan Kitty awful close, aren't you?" My blood ran cold. He didn't say it like a question. He said it like he already knew. Ryan and I had been inseparable since 8th grade, when he moved to town with his mom after his parents' messy divorce. He was everything I was, confident, charming, with a smile that could light up a room. We'd spent years sneaking into each other's lives, stealing moments in movie theaters, hiking trails, anywhere we could be alone. Last summer, under a sky full of stars by Clear Creek, he'd kissed me. It was quick, clumsy, and perfect. But it was also dangerous. If anyone found out, especially Mike, it wouldn't just be gossip. It could ruin us. "Ryan's just my friend," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Mike's jaw tightened, and for a moment, I thought he might let it go. Then he stepped closer, his boots inches from mine. "Don't lie to me, Elliot," he said, his voice low and sharp. "I saw you two last week, in the driveway." My knees buckled, but I caught myself on the workbench. He'd seen us. The brush of our hands, the way Ryan's eyes lingered on mine a second too long. My mouth went dry, and all I could hear was the pounding of my own heart. "I don't know what you're talking about," I said, but my voice cracked, betraying me. Mike's eyes darkened, and he leaned in, his breath hot on my face. "You think I'm stupid?" he hissed, You think I don't see what's going on? You're my responsibility, Elliot. And I won't let you throw your life away on this. He spat the last word like it was poison. My chest tightened, and I wanted to scream. To tell him he didn't understand. That what I felt for Ryan was the only thing keeping me alive in this suffocating town. But I couldn't. The words were trapped. Just like me. Mike straightened up. His face unreadable. We're not done talking about this, he said. You're coming inside. Now. He turned and walked out, leaving the garage door open like a challenge. I stood there, shaking, the journal still hidden behind the toolbox. My secret wasn't safe anymore, and neither was I. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of Mom humming in the kitchen, oblivious to the storm brewing under our roof. I hadn't slept. Mike's words echoed in my head all night, each one a hammer against my fragile sense of safety. I needed to see Ryan, to tell him what happened. But the thought of facing him, of admitting how close we were to being exposed, made my stomach churn. I found him at our usual spot, a clearing in the woods behind the high school. He was sitting on a fallen log, tossing pebbles into a stream, his dark hair catching the sunlight. When he saw me, his face lit up, but it faded the moment he noticed my expression. Elliot, what's wrong? He asked, standing up. I wanted to collapse into his arms, to let him hold me until the world made sense again. But I couldn't. Not here. Not now. Mike knows, I said, my voice barely audible. Ryan's eyes widened, and he grabbed my hand, pulling me closer. What do you mean? He knows. He asked, his voice urgent. I told him everything, the garage, Mike's accusations, the way his words had left me shaking for hours. Ryan's face hardened, but his hand stayed warm in mine, grounding me. He can't do anything, Ryan said, his voice fierce. He's not your dad, Elliot. He doesn't get to control you. But we both knew it wasn't that simple. Mike wasn't just my stepdad. He was a pillar of our community, a deacon at the church, the kind of man people listened to. If he outed us, it wouldn't just be our families turning against us. It would be the whole town. We need to be careful, I said, my voice trembling. If he tells anyone, he won't. Ryan cut in, his eyes blazing. We'll figure this out. Together. He squeezed my hand, and for a moment, I believed him. But deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. Mike wasn't the type to let things go, and I wasn't sure I was strong enough to face what came next. The days that followed were a tightrope walk over a pit of snakes. Every creak of the floorboards, every glance from Mike, felt like a countdown to disaster. I stopped writing in my journal, too afraid he'd find it. But the words I couldn't write burned in my chest. I love him. I love him. And it's tearing me apart. Ryan and I tried to act normal. But normal was a lie we couldn't sustain. We stopped meeting at the clearing. Stopped texting after midnight. Stopped everything that made us us. But the distance only made me want him more. Every time I saw him at school, at the diner where he worked part-time, my heart ached like a bruise. I'd catch his eye across a crowded room. And for a split second, it was just us. Then reality would crash back in. And I'd remember Mike's words, I won't let you throw your life away. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. I slipped out after Mom went to bed, leaving Mike snoring in front of the TV. The air was crisp, the kind of Colorado night that made your breath visible. I biked to Ryan's house, my legs burning as I pedaled through the quiet streets. His window was cracked open, just like always, and I tapped lightly. He appeared, his hair a mess, his eyes wide with surprise. "Elliot, what are you doing here?" he whispered, pulling me inside. His room smelled like cedar and laundry detergent, a scent that felt like home. I didn't answer. I just kissed him, desperate and reckless, like I could pour all my fear into that one moment. He kissed me back, his hands tangling in my hair, and for a few seconds, the world was right. But then he pulled away, his expression serious. "We can't keep doing this," he said. "Not like this. Not sneaking around like we're criminals." His voice cracked, and I saw the fear in his eyes, fear I'd put there. I wanted to promise him everything would be okay, but the words stuck in my throat. Because what if it wasn't? "I'm scared," I admitted, my voice barely a whisper. Ryan's face softened, and he pulled me into his arms, his chin resting on my head. "Me too," he said. "But I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you." Those words hit me like a tidal wave, washing away the doubt that had been eating at me. I buried my face in his chest, listening to his heartbeat, wishing I could freeze time. But time didn't freeze. The next morning, Mike was waiting for me in the kitchen, his coffee mug untouched. Mom was at work, and the house felt too quiet, like the calm before a storm. He didn't look at me when he spoke. "I'm giving you a chance, Elliot," he said, his voice low. "End it with that boy, or I'll make sure everyone knows." My stomach dropped. This wasn't a threat, it was a promise. I thought of Ryan, of his laugh, his touch, the way he made me feel like I could be myself. And I thought of the town, our neighbors, our church, the people who'd turn their backs on us without a second thought. "I can't," I said, my voice shaking but firm. Mike's head snapped up, his eyes burning with something I couldn't read: anger, disappointment, maybe even pain. "You're making a mistake," he said. "You think this is love. It's a choice, Elliot. And you're choosing wrong." He stood, his chair scraping against the floor, and walked out. I sat there, my hands trembling, knowing I'd just crossed a line I couldn't uncross. Ryan and I met that afternoon at the library, the one place we could talk without being overheard. He looked tired, his usual spark dimmed by the weight of our situation. "What did he say?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I told him everything, watching his face harden with every word. When I finished, he leaned back, running a hand through his hair. "We could leave," he said suddenly. "Just go. Somewhere they can't touch us." The idea was intoxicating, running away, starting over, being free. But it was also impossible. We were 19, broke, with no plan and no safety net. Where would we go? I asked, my voice heavy with doubt. "Anywhere," he said, his eyes fierce. "San Francisco, Seattle, somewhere we can be ourselves. I don't care, as long as I'm with you." His words were a lifeline, but they also terrified me. Leaving meant giving up everything: me, mom, my home, the life I'd known. But staying meant giving up Ryan. And I wasn't sure I could survive that. "We need a plan," I said finally. "We can't just run." Ryan nodded, but I could see the frustration in his eyes. He wanted to fight, to take on the world. But I was still learning how to fight for myself. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, torn between fear and hope. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing: I wasn't letting go of Ryan. Not now. Not ever. The ultimatum hung over me like a guillotine. Mike's words echoed in my head, a constant reminder that time was running out. I had to choose, Ryan or the life I'd always known. But it wasn't just about me anymore. It was about us. About the love we'd fought so hard to protect. Ryan and I started planning in secret, stealing moments in the school parking lot or the back of the diner after his shift. We talked about community colleges in bigger cities, part-time jobs, a cheap apartment we could share. It wasn't glamorous, but it was ours. Every whispered plan felt like a rebellion, a way to take back the power Mike thought he had over me. But rebellion came with a cost. One evening, as I slipped back into the house after meeting Ryan, Mike was waiting in the living room. The TV was off, the silence deafening. He held my journal in his hands, the one I thought I'd hidden so well. My heart stopped. "You left this in the garage," he said, his voice calm but cold. I read it. My knees buckled, and I grabbed the couch to steady myself. He'd read everything me fears. My love for Ryan. The dreams I'd barely dared to write down. I felt exposed, like he'd ripped my skin off and left me bleeding. "You're confused, Elliot," he said, setting the journal down. "This isn't who you are. It's a phase. A mistake. I'm trying to save you." His words stung, not because they were true, but because they weren't. I wasn't confused. I'd never been more certain of anything than I was of Ryan. "I'm not a mistake," I said, my voice steady despite the tears burning my eyes. "And neither is he." Mike's face twisted, a mix of anger and something softer. Something I didn't expect: sadness. "You're throwing your life away," he said. "For what?" "A boy." He stood, towering over me. But for the first time, I didn't feel small. I felt strong. "He's not just a boy," I said. "He's my future." The words came out before I could stop them, and they felt like a declaration of war. Mike stared at me, his jaw tight, then turned and walked away. I knew it wasn't over, but I'd made my choice. The next week was a blur of planning and fear. Ryan found a community college in Portland that offered financial aid, and we started pooling our savings from odd jobs. Him from the diner. It wasn't much, but it was a start. We told no one, not even Mom, who still smiled at me like nothing was wrong. I hated lying to her, but I couldn't risk her siding with Mike. The night before we planned to leave, I found Mom in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for dinner. She looked tired, older than her 42 years, and guilt twisted in my gut. "Elliot," she said, not looking up, "you've been distant. Is something wrong?" I wanted to tell her everything, to spill the truth and beg for her understanding. But I couldn't. Not yet. Just stressed about college. I lied. She nodded, but her eyes lingered on me, like she knew there was more. That night, I packed a duffel bag with clothes, my journal, and a photo of me and Ryan from last summer, laughing by the creek. I hid it under my bed, my heart pounding with anticipation and dread. Tomorrow, we'd leave. Tomorrow, we'd be free. But freedom came at a price. At dawn, as I crept downstairs, Mike was waiting. He didn't yell. He didn't threaten. He just looked at me, his eyes heavy with something I couldn't name. "If you leave," he said, "don't come back." The words hit like a punch, but I didn't flinch. "I'm not coming back," I said, and I meant it. I walked out, my bag slung over my shoulder, and didn't look back. Ryan was waiting at the bus station, his own bag at his feet. When he saw me, he smiled, and it was like the sun breaking through clouds. We didn't say much as we boarded the bus to Portland, our hands intertwined under a jacket so no one would see. The world outside the window blurred by your town, our past, fading into the distance. In Portland, we found a tiny apartment above a bookstore, with creaky floors and a view of the city. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. We worked, studied, and built a life, piece by piece. Some days where hard money was tight, and the fear of being found lingered. But every night, when I fell asleep next to Ryan, I knew I'd made the right choice. Months later, I got a letter from Mom. She'd found my journal, the one Mike had read. She wrote that she didn't understand everything, but she loved me and wanted me to be happy. She asked to visit, to meet Ryan, to start over. I cried when I read it, not because I was sad, but because I was free. Our love wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a sin. It was the truest thing I'd ever known, and it gave me the courage to fight for a life worth living. In that garage, where it all began, I'd been shaking with fear. But now, with Ryan by my side, I was shaking with hope.